Hello. So video is going to be a quick look at the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy, and the state of that goal in China. So this graph here is primary energy consumption per capita across the globe. So we have the Chinese population here in red as of 2024 consuming 34,500 kilowatt hours per person. And that stacks up modestly against Canada and the United States here, quite modestly, and outpaces India. They've been on a rising energy consumption since consistently, as long as the graph goes, but especially since the 2000s, and that coincides with the urbanization and modernization of their nation. They've had a lot of people moving into cities, just like everywhere else, but really more so than everywhere else. A lot of pivot into technology and technical jobs. Some of those manufacturing positions that China is famous for are actually those are getting eaten up by other countries in the region. A lot of Thai, a lot of Vietnamese, and a lot of South American production has cut into that. And now that China is working more and more in these high tech sectors, they're going to be using industrially a lot more energy. And with the urbanized population, the average everyday person is going to use more energy in their day to day life. So, that being said, we have seen this big increase. It's still way behind the United States, which along with Canada, has consistently been a high energy use part of the world. And if we look at the world average here, we can see that it's been very consistent over the years. And as of 2024, is sitting at about 21,500 kilowatt hours per person, which China, although far closer to than the United States, still outpaces considerably. Now let's look at energy generation. This is China in the blue, and we saw in the last graph a big rise starting in the 2000s. And as you would expect, energy consumption and generation sort of rise and fall together. And that's going to be true everywhere. That's going to be true in China, of course. We've seen a big jump in energy production, and although the patterns mirror each other with rise in energy consumption, rise in energy generation, we can see that both with the States, with China, and with India, sitting at 12,000, 7,000, and 1,400 respectively, that all of these are far lower numbers in energy generation than they are in energy consumption. Remember, it was almost 13,000 in the United States, 7,000 and 1,400. Over here, we have higher energy generation in India at nearly 8,000 kilowatt hours per person, but much higher consumption than generation in the US and China with 76,000 and 34,000 in 2024. So China's energy generation capability is rising in line with its needs. They are perfectly able to source energy, especially today when a lot of major energy producing countries, um, Russia, Iran, not so much Venezuela anymore, but Venezuela for a long time. These were big oil and energy producing countries that were sanctioned by the United States and the United States allies, which made China a much more attractive client and gave them the leverage to get cheaper energy from those sources. So, all that to say, they have developed sourcing capabilities and domestic energy production. However, just like the rest of the world in China, They're mostly relying on fossil fuels for their energy production, and most of their fossil fuel energy production comes from coal. This is the case in the United States. This is a pattern we see across regions and countries, and it holds true in China that coal is still the main body of their energy consumption, and we have a sizable chunk coming from renewables up here. And nuclear, while not necessarily a renewable energy source, it's not a fossil fuel either. It's a clean energy source in terms of carbon emissions. So the choice to fold that into renewables is subjective. I mean, it's not a renewable, but you could consider it in a way green energy. And that makes up, you know, looks like coming up on 40% here, 30 something percent, maybe 30, 35, 37% of their energy consumption, production rather, as of 2024 is coming from those clean sources. So that is good to see. That is progress. And clearly, coal is the big thing we got to get away from globally to address this sustainable development goal. And still lots of work to do there in China. Now let's take a look at the XMind graph of potential solutions. If I can get that pulled up real quick. There it is. All right. So the role of global information technologies in the production and distribution of affordable and clean energy is going to be divided into the three categories of enhancing energy efficiency, promoting renewable sources, and improving access in underserved communities. So that hits the affordability and clean aspect of energy. And that's going to be accomplished through the key technological solutions and initiatives, the practical work, or rather we can call it practical work, and the global collaboration and research, the group work, the more cerebral aspect of this goal. So, like we talked about in a previous SDG video, China is a generally collaborative culture. They're good at rubbing their heads together to get a problem done over there or get a problem solved. And the key solutions is really where the body of work, the meat on the bone, so to speak, is in this issue. And AI is going to be huge. IoT, Internet of Things, is going to be huge in affordable and clean energy because, see, mini grids here operate independently and effective delivery of renewable power. That's going to come from Internet of Things. That's many smart grids of electrical power in underserved areas, in neglected areas, in technologically lacking areas. If we can bring that technology to those problem areas, that's where it's going to shine. So we're running low on time here, so thanks for checking in with me once again, and have a good day.